She is a narrated fiction story created for discussion and entertainment purposes.
Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. A massive container filled with sand and marked delinquent blocked Adam Cooper's driveway, trapping him on his own land. The HOA claimed he owed them, but Adam wasn't even a member. What started as intimidation turned into a full-scale war for justice, pitting one man against a corrupt, power-hungry system. Adam Cooper lived for peace and independence. His ranch, nestled at the outskirts of a quiet suburban neighborhood, was his sanctuary. Purchased years ago with meticulous attention to location and legal rights, it offered the privacy he craved without the entanglements of a homeowners association, HOA. Adam knew the pitfalls of such organizations, the endless fees, arbitrary rules, and overreaching presidents. He deliberately avoided them, securing a property that was legally outside the HOA's reach. That peaceful existence was shattered one early morning when Adam stepped out of his house, coffee mug in hand, and stopped dead in his tracks. Blocking his private driveway was an enormous metal container, tall and wide enough to completely obstruct any vehicle. The container was scrawled with bold red letters, "Delinquent." The shocking sight was made worse by the realization that it was filled to the brim with sand and stones, making it impossible to move without industrial equipment. Adam's initial disbelief quickly gave way to fury. He approached the hulking obstruction, touching its cold steel sides as if to confirm it was real. A closer inspection revealed no explanation, just the accusatory word, as though it were a public proclamation of his supposed guilt. Yet Adam knew he had never signed any agreements with the nearby HOA, much less owed them any money. He spent the next hour calling the HOA office, leaving increasingly frustrated voicemails after being redirected to a general mailbox. His neighbor, an elderly veteran named George, leaned over the fence to watch. "Damn them," George muttered. "Same folks threatened me last year about painting my shed the wrong color. Never trust 'em." Adam's anger flared further when George revealed that the HOA president, Karen White, had been known to use intimidation tactics to coerce nearby homeowners into compliance. Karen claimed that properties near the HOA community had a moral obligation to abide by their rules, even when legally exempt. George's warning became Adam's call to action. When the sun set, Adam stood in his yard, staring at the container that now symbolized more than a blocked driveway. It was an invasion of his rights, a deliberate act of sabotage. He knew this was only the beginning of a battle, but one thing was certain. He wouldn't let Karen or her HOA bully him without a fight. Adam Cooper's first move was to take matters into his own hands, literally. Equipped with a sturdy tow chain and his heavy-duty truck, he approached the massive container the following morning. The rusted steel creaked under the strain as Adam accelerated, the truck's tires spinning in protest. Despite his best efforts, the container remained immovable, its weight anchored by the sand and stones inside. Sweat dripped from Adam's brow as he climbed out of the truck and assessed the damage to his tires, now scuffed and slightly deflated. Frustration mounted as the realization hit him. This obstacle was no ordinary inconvenience. It was a deliberate act of entrapment. Determined to get answers, Adam stormed into the HOA office later that day. The receptionist, a young woman with a nameplate reading Sophia, looked nervous as he approached. "I need to speak with Karen White. Now," Adam demanded, his voice firm but controlled. "She's in a meeting," Sophia stammered, clearly rehearsing an excuse. "I can take a message." "No message. This is about the container blocking my driveway. Either she comes out or I'm filing a police report." Moments later, Karen White emerged, exuding an air of calculated authority. Dressed in a crisp blazer and armed with a clipboard, she greeted Adam with a smile so insincere it bordered on insulting. "Mr. Cooper," she said, her tone dripping with feigned civility, "I assume you're here about the delinquency notice?" "Delinquency?" Adam snapped. "I don't owe your HOA anything. My property isn't part of your jurisdiction." Karen raised an eyebrow, flipping through her clipboard. "According to our updated community boundaries, your property falls within the area we manage. It's all in the paperwork." Adam's patience was wearing thin. "Let me make this clear. My property predates your HOA by decades. I have no contract with you, no obligation to follow your rules, and certainly no debt to your organization. Remove that container immediately." Karen's smile faltered but quickly returned, sharper now. I'm afraid that's not possible until the issue is resolved. As a show of goodwill, I'm willing to reduce your owed dues if you settle this week." Furious, Adam turned on his heel and left, vowing to fight back. But the situation grew worse. Over the next few days, he discovered Karen had spread rumors among his neighbors, claiming he was a habitual rule breaker and refusing to pay community fees that funded local improvements. Some neighbors, fearing reprisal, distanced themselves, while others whispered their support but offered no help. Late one evening, Adam received a threatening email from the HOA's legal department. The message accused him of property negligence and warned of escalating fines if he failed to comply. His frustration boiled over. He dialed George, his neighbor, for advice. "Adam, they did the same to me a while back," George admitted. "Threatened liens on my house until I caved. But you're tougher than me. You should call a lawyer." The suggestion made sense. Adam contacted a local property rights attorney the next morning. The lawyer, a sharp and confident woman named Sarah, quickly reassured him. "They're bluffing," Sarah said after reviewing Adam's deed and HOA correspondence. "But bluffing can turn ugly. We'll draft a formal demand for them to remove the container and cease any further harassment. If they don't comply, we'll escalate." Meanwhile, the blockade began impacting Adam's daily life. With his driveway blocked, he couldn't use his truck for work. Packages were undeliverable, and emergency services couldn't reach his home if needed. Each day, the immovable container loomed larger, a tangible reminder of the HOA's audacity. Adam refused to back down. He installed security cameras to monitor any further interference and documented every interaction with Karen and her team. The tension in the air was palpable, and Adam knew that the battle ahead would require every ounce of his resolve. For Adam, this was no longer just about his driveway. It was about protecting his rights and refusing to bow to the overreach of an authoritarian HOA. The following morning, Adam awoke to the sound of his security camera's motion alerts pinging his phone. Grabbing his jacket, he stepped outside to find a group of HOA-hired workers inspecting the container, taking notes, and snapping photos of his property. Anger bubbled up inside him as he approached. "Can I help you?" Adam called out, startling the crew. One of the men, a middle-aged foreman with a clipboard, glanced up nervously. "We're just here on behalf of the HOA routine inspection, sir." "Routine inspection of private property? Without my permission?" Adam demanded. "Get off my land now." The foreman hesitated, but ultimately motioned for his crew to retreat. As they loaded into their truck, Adam's phone buzzed again. This time it was Karen White calling. "I see you've met our team." Karen's voice oozed confidence. "We're simply ensuring the integrity of the area, considering the disruption your delinquency is causing." Adam's patience snapped. "Karen, this has gone far enough. That container is illegal, your workers are trespassing, and I've contacted a lawyer. I'm filing a police report." Unfazed, Karen chuckled. "Feel free, Mr. Cooper, but you might want to review local statutes first. You'll find the HOA is well within its rights to ensure compliance. Let's see what the authorities think of your so-called case." Adam ended the call and immediately dialed 911. Within 20 minutes, 2 police cruisers arrived. Officers Simmons and Price listened attentively as Adam explained the situation, presenting his deed, documentation, and Sarah's formal letter demanding the removal of the container. Karen arrived moments later, her car screeching to a halt as she strutted toward the officers. She carried her signature clipboard and a folder of HOA maps. "This is a community matter," Karen began, her tone imperious. "Mr. Cooper's property falls within the HOA's boundaries as per our updated jurisdiction maps. He's refusing to pay dues or follow regulations, leaving us no choice but to take measures." Officer Simmons raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, Mr. Cooper's deed and these documents clearly state his property is not under HOA governance. Do you have any legal proof to counter this?" Karen hesitated before handing over her folder. The officers reviewed the HOA maps, frowning. "These are HOA-specific documents, not official records," Simmons said, looking unimpressed. "Regardless," Karen snapped, "his actions disrupt the community, and the container stays until this is resolved." Officer Price shook his head. "That container is blocking a private driveway, violating local property laws. It needs to be removed immediately, or the HOA faces fines and potential charges." Karen's face reddened. "This isn't over," she hissed, glaring at Adam. As the officers issued a formal warning to Karen, Adam felt a small surge of relief. Yet he knew this was merely the opening salvo. Karen's defiance and the HOA's audacity were far from over. The battle lines were drawn, and Adam braced himself for the escalation to come. Adam Cooper sat at his dining table, the faint hum of his security cameras providing the only sound in his once peaceful home. After the police visit, the container still sat immovable in his driveway, a metallic insult to his rights. He clenched his fists, vowing not to let Karen or the HOA bully him further. His lawyer, Sarah, called later that afternoon. "Adam, we've filed a formal complaint with the county about the HOA's actions," she began. "I've also sent a cease and desist letter directly to Karen and the HOA board demanding immediate removal of the container. They've got 72 hours to comply." "Do you think they'll back down?" Adam asked, though he already knew the answer. "Karen strikes me as someone who thrives on pushing limits," Sarah said. "But if they don't act, we'll take this to court. And believe me, Adam will win." Feeling reinvigorated, Adam took matters a step further. He called a local news station explaining the situation and providing documentation of the HOA's illegal actions. The next morning, a crew arrived at his home, cameras rolling as Adam stood before the glaring container. "This isn't just about me," Adam told the reporter. "It's about every homeowner who's ever been bullied by an HOA that thinks it's above the law." The segment aired that evening, featuring clips of Karen's confrontations with the police and the container blocking Adam's driveway. By morning, the HOA's audacity was the talk of the town, but Karen was far from retreating. Instead, she doubled down. That evening, Adam's security cameras captured two men from the HOA walking along his property, shining flashlights into his windows and taking photos. Furious, Adam called the police again. This time, officers confirmed the HOA had no right to survey his property without a warrant. The trespassers were escorted off, and Adam filed another complaint. The pressure began to shift. A neighbor, George, came by with unexpected news. "Adam," he whispered, glancing around as if to ensure no one was watching. "I've been part of the HOA for years. Karen's lying about the boundaries. Your property isn't listed in any official documents. She's acting on her own, trying to expand control." Armed with this revelation, Adam and Sarah dug deeper, requesting public records. What they found was damning. Karen had doctored maps to falsely include Adam's property, using them to push her agenda. They immediately filed the evidence with the county and prepared to sue Karen personally alongside the HOA. The community began to turn against Karen as news of her manipulations spread. Adam received anonymous messages from neighbors who were tired of Karen's reign of terror but had been too afraid to speak out. Encouraged, Adam organized a meeting at his home, inviting those willing to challenge Karen's authority. That evening, over a dozen residents arrived. Many shared similar stories, threats of liens, fines for trivial violations, and Karen's frequent disregard for legal boundaries. United by their grievances, they agreed to back Adam's legal fight and expose Karen's abuses publicly. For the first time in weeks, Adam felt a glimmer of hope. The fight was no longer his alone. The community was rallying, and the tide was turning against Karen. With Sarah's legal expertise, the county's mounting involvement, and growing public support, Adam knew he was ready for the storm ahead. The courtroom was packed. News of Adam's case against Karen White and the HOA had become a local sensation, drawing neighbors, reporters, and curious onlookers. Adam sat at the plaintiff's table alongside his lawyer, Sarah, who exuded calm confidence. Across the room, Karen sat flanked by her legal team, her expression a blend of smugness and defiance. The judge entered, and the courtroom fell silent. "This case," the judge began, "involves allegations of harassment, property rights violations, and potential fraudulent actions by the defendant, Karen White, and the Maple Grove HOA." Sarah stood, addressing the court. "Your Honor, this is a clear case of overreach and abuse of power. My client's property is not, and has never been, under the HOA's jurisdiction. Despite this, the defendants illegally blocked his driveway with a container, disrupted his life, and manipulated maps to extend their authority." She laid out the evidence meticulously. Adam's deed, historical property records, and the doctored maps Karen had presented to the police. Sarah also introduced witness statements from neighbors, many of whom testified about Karen's years of authoritarian control. She used intimidation and lies. George, Adam's elderly neighbor, told the court, "She bullied us into compliance, and Adam was the first to stand up to her." Karen's lawyer attempted to discredit the claims, insisting that the HOA was acting in the community's best interests. They argued that Adam's refusal to join the HOA had caused disruptions and justified their actions. But their case unraveled when Sarah cross-examined Karen herself. Under pressure, Karen's composure cracked. "The HOA has rules for a reason," she snapped. "If we don't enforce them, the whole neighborhood will descend into chaos. His property should have been included from the start." "Should have been," Sarah pressed. "So you admit you altered maps to justify your actions?" Karen stammered, realizing her slip. The room buzzed as the judge sternly silenced the chatter. Sarah presented the security footage showing HOA trespassers on Adam's land and the container blocking his driveway. She concluded her case by highlighting the emotional and financial toll the situation had taken on Adam. When it was Karen's turn to testify, her arrogance gave way to desperation. "This was a misunderstanding," she insisted. "I only wanted what was best for the community." The jury deliberated for hours, but the verdict was unanimous. Karen White and the HOA were found guilty of harassment, fraud, and illegal interference with private property. The judge's ruling was scathing. This court finds the actions of the HOA and its president not only unlawful, but an egregious abuse of power. The defendant is ordered to pay damages to Mr. Cooper for financial losses and emotional distress. Furthermore, the HOA must immediately remove the container and cease all harassment. Karen's face was ashen as the gavel struck. Reporters swarmed Adam outside the courthouse. "Justice was served," Adam told them. "This wasn't just about me. It was about standing up for everyone's right to live without fear of bullies like Karen." As the crowd cheered, Karen was escorted out, her reign of unchecked power finally over. For Adam, the victory was more than personal. It was a win for the entire community. In the days following the court's decision, the massive container was finally removed from Adam's driveway. Watching the crane lift the rusted metal blockade away was a moment of profound relief for him, a physical representation of the battle he had fought and won. The HOA, under court orders, faced a mandatory restructuring. Karen White was removed as president, her manipulations and abuse of power laid bare for all to see. An independent auditor was appointed to oversee the HOA's operations, ensuring no similar overreach could happen again. For the community, Karen's downfall was a turning point. Once silent out of fear, neighbors began to speak openly about their grievances. A new HOA board was formed, composed of fair-minded residents who prioritized collaboration over coercion. Policies were rewritten to prevent future abuses, and neighbors who once lived in fear now found themselves participating in neighborhood events and initiatives. As for Adam, his life returned to the peace he had always cherished, but his victory left a lasting impact. His stand against the HOA inspired others to defend their rights and challenge injustice. Neighbors now waved warmly as they passed his home, no longer strangers, but allies. Sitting on his porch one evening, Adam reflected on how much had changed. His battle had been hard fought, but the outcome proved that even the most entrenched systems could be challenged and reformed when someone dared to stand their ground. Months passed, and the neighborhood transformed. The once feared HOA, now led by fair and cooperative residents, shifted its focus from enforcement to building a true sense of community. Neighbors organized block parties, communal garden projects, and volunteer programs to assist elderly or struggling homeowners. The atmosphere was lighter, friendlier, and more united than ever before. Adam's defiance became a local legend, a story of resilience that inspired others to stand up for their rights. His home, no longer isolated, became a symbol of independence and justice. On anniversaries of his court victory, neighbors would gather at his place to celebrate the reforms his fight had brought. Karen White faded from public view, her influence a distant memory, but the lessons of her reign lingered. The neighborhood learned that power, unchecked, could destroy, but also that courage and solidarity could rebuild. For Adam, life was peaceful again, but the impact of his stand echoed far beyond his driveway.